The year 3567 marked the pinnacle of human achievement. From the gleaming spires of Neo-Singapore that pierced the stratosphere to the quantum gardens of New Atlantis beneath the Pacific waves, humanity had reshaped reality itself. Energy flowed freely through dimensional conduits, matter could be restructured at the molecular level with a thought, and consciousness itself had been mapped and expanded beyond the confines of biological flesh. Captain Amelia stood at the observation deck of the Prometheus station, humanity's crown jewel of space-based research facilities. The station existed in a state of controlled phase shift, allowing it to occupy multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. Through the translucent aluminum viewing ports, she could see Earth in all its restored glory. The atmospheric processors had long since reversed the damage of the ancient industrial age, and the planet now gleamed like a blue-green jewel against the cosmic darkness. "Captain, you need to see this immediately." The voice belonged to Dr. Marcus Chen, the station's chief astronomer, and Amelia's closest colleague. His usually calm demeanor carried an edge of urgency that made her neural implants flicker with concern. Amelia turned from the viewport, her enhanced eyes automatically adjusting to focus on Marcus's approach. At 35, she was young for a Captain, a military rank that combined the ancient traditions of leadership with the cutting-edge demands of interdimensional warfare. Her augmented physiology was subtle but unmistakable, the silver threading beneath her skin that channeled quantum energy, the slight luminescence of her irises that indicated direct neural interface with the station's systems, and the way she moved with the fluid precision of someone whose reflexes had been enhanced to near superhuman levels. "What is it?" she asked, already accessing the station's sensor network through her implants. "Lunar anomalies. Massive ones." Marcus gestured toward the analysis chamber. "The gravitational sensors picked up the first disturbances 3 days ago. We initially dismissed them as natural seismic activity, but the pattern analysis suggests something else entirely." They walked together through the station's corridors, past laboratories where scientists worked on projects that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. In one room, a team was attempting to communicate with a pocket dimension they had discovered. In another, researchers were cultivating a new form of matter that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. The analysis chamber was a sphere of pure quantum crystal, suspended in the heart of the station. Inside, holographic displays showed real-time data from thousands of sensors across the solar system. The moon hung in the center of the chamber, its familiar gray surface now marked with pulsing red indicators. "Show me the data," Amelia commanded. The holographic display shifted, zooming in on the lunar surface. What she saw made her enhanced heart skip a beat. Across the moon's far side, which had been hidden from Earth's view for millennia, something was building. The structures were massive, clearly artificial, but unlike anything in humanity's technological repertoire. They had a crude, organic quality that seemed to pulse with dark energy. "How long has this been going on?" Amelia asked, her voice tight with controlled alarm. "The construction began approximately 6 months ago," Marcus replied, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls. "But here's the truly disturbing part, watch this." The display shifted to show energy readings from the lunar surface. Massive spikes of unknown radiation were emanating from the structures, and the pattern was clearly artificial. But what made Amelia's blood run cold was the signature itself. "That's not human technology," she whispered. "No," Marcus confirmed. "And it's not from any known alien civilization either. The energy signature is primitive, but incredibly powerful. It's as if someone took Stone Age understanding and applied it to cosmic forces." Amelia's mind raced through the possibilities. In 3567, humanity had encountered dozens of alien civilizations. Some had been peaceful, others hostile, but all had followed recognizable patterns of technological development. This was different. This was something that operated on entirely different principles. "Have you informed the Council?" she asked. "Not yet. I wanted to be sure before we triggered a full alert. But Amelia, there's more." The display shifted again, showing a time-lapse of the lunar construction over the past month. The structures weren't just buildings. They were forming patterns, creating what looked like a massive ritual circle encompassing nearly a quarter of the moon's surface. "What kind of civilization builds ritual circles on the moon?" Amelia murmured. "That's not the worst part," Marcus said grimly. "Look at the energy readings from the past 48 hours. The display showed a sharp spike in the mysterious radiation, followed by smaller spikes that seemed to be getting stronger and more frequent. They're testing something," Amelia realized. "Building up to something big. That's what I think too. And Amelia, I've been running projections based on the energy patterns. If they continue to increase at this rate. How long do we have? 3 weeks. Maybe less." Amelia stared at the holographic moon, her mind already shifting into tactical mode. She had been trained for this kind of situation: unknown threats, impossible odds, the need to act quickly with incomplete information. But something about this felt different. More primal. More dangerous. "Marcus, I need you to compile everything we have on this situation. Energy signatures, construction patterns, material analysis, everything. And do it quietly. I'm going to contact the council, but I want to present them with a complete picture." "Understood. But Amelia, what do you think we're dealing with here?" She looked at the pulsing red indicators on the lunar surface, each one representing a threat to everything humanity had built over the past millennium and a half. "I don't know," she admitted. "But whatever it is, it's not going to wait for us to figure it out." The council chamber of the Terran Federation existed in a state of quantum superposition, allowing representatives from across human space to attend simultaneously regardless of their physical location. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, a sphere of crystallized spacetime that could hold beings existing in multiple dimensions at once. Camitan Amelia materialized in the chamber through a translucent portal, her molecular structure reassembling from the quantum stream. Around her, the representatives of humanity's far-flung civilization began to take shape: Admiral Kenji Nakamura from the Titan Defense Fleet, Dr. Sarah Volkov from the Mars Research Collective, General Hassan Al-Rashi from the Asteroid Mining Consortium, and dozens of others whose expertise spanned the breadth of human knowledge. At the center of the chamber stood the High Counselor, Elena Vasquez, whose consciousness had been so enhanced over her 200-year lifespan that she existed more as a pattern of pure thought than as flesh and blood. Her voice resonated directly in the minds of all present. "We are gathered to address a threat that may represent the greatest challenge to our civilization since the quantum wars of 3421, she began. "Camitan Amelia, present your findings." Amelia stepped forward, her implants interfacing with the chamber's systems to display the data she and Marcus had compiled. The holographic moon appeared in the center of the chamber, its dark structures now visible to all. 6 months ago, an unknown civilization began construction on the lunar surface. She began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent her life preparing for moments like this. "The construction is massive in scale and follows no known technological paradigm. More concerning, the energy signatures suggest they are preparing for some kind of large-scale operation." The display shifted to show the energy readings, and Amelia could see the concern ripple through the assembled representatives. Admiral Nakamura's gruff voice cut through the chamber. "What kind of operation?" "Unknown," Amelia replied. "But based on the pattern of construction and the increasing energy outputs, we believe it's something that will directly threaten Earth." Dr. Volkov's ethereal form shimmered as she spoke. "Have we attempted contact?" "Standard communication protocols have been tried," Amelia answered. "No response. They appear to be either ignoring us or operating on communication frequencies we haven't discovered." General Al-Rashid's massive form leaned forward. "What about defenses? Surely they're not just ignoring the fact that we've detected them." "That's one of the most disturbing aspects," Amelia said, causing the display to shift to show defensive analysis. "They appear to have no interest in stealth or concealment. They're building openly, almost as if they want us to know they're there. Or they don't consider us a threat," the High Counselor observed, her mental voice carrying undertones of concern. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had grown accustomed to being the dominant force in their region of space. The idea that something could dismiss them so casually was deeply unsettling. "What do we know about their technology?" asked Dr. Reginald Harrington from the Dimensional Research Division. Amelia gestured, and the display showed the material analysis. "This is where it gets truly strange. The construction materials are recognizable: metals, ceramics, even some organic compounds. But they're arranged in patterns that don't follow any known engineering principles. It's as if they're building by instinct rather than design." "Instinct?" Admiral Nakamura questioned. "The structures have an organic quality, but they're clearly artificial. And the energy patterns, they're unlike anything we've encountered. They seem to be tapping into fundamental forces that we've barely begun to understand." Dr. Volkov's form flickered with interest. "Could you elaborate on these energy patterns?" "The readings suggest they're manipulating what we might call primal forces: gravity, time, space itself, but not through technological means. It's more like they're working with these forces directly, through some form of natural ability." The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives tried to process this information. In humanity's long history of technological advancement, they had encountered many strange phenomena, but this was unlike anything in their experience. High Counselor Vasquez's mental voice cut through the chatter. "What are your recommendations, Camiton?" Amelia had been preparing for this question. "We need more information. I propose a reconnaissance mission to the lunar surface. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we can formulate a proper response." "That's incredibly dangerous," Admiral Nakamura pointed out. "If they're as powerful as you suggest, a recon mission could be seen as an act of aggression." "With respect, Admiral," Amelia replied, "I believe they've already committed the first act of aggression by building military installations on the moon without permission." "You're assuming they're military installations," Dr. Harrington interjected. "What if there's something else entirely?" "Then we need to find out what they are," Amelia said firmly. "The energy buildup suggests they're planning something major. We have perhaps 3 weeks before whatever they're building reaches critical mass. We can't afford to wait." The High Counselor's presence seemed to expand, filling the chamber with the weight of her consideration. "What would such a mission require?" "A small team of specialists," Amelia answered. "Scientists, engineers, combat specialists. We use stealth technology to approach the lunar surface and gather intelligence. If possible, we attempt to make contact. If not, we assess their defenses and capabilities. And if they detect your team? Then we learn something about their detection capabilities and their response protocols." Admiral Nakamura's scarred face showed his approval. "It's a solid plan. High risk but solid." "I have concerns about the mission profile," Dr. Volkov interjected. "The energy signatures suggest these beings might be able to perceive across multiple dimensions. Our stealth technology might be ineffective." "Then we adapt," Amelia said. "We've faced seemingly impossible challenges before." The debate continued for another hour, with representatives raising concerns about everything from diplomatic protocols to the possibility of triggering an interstellar war. But in the end, the reality was inescapable. They needed to know what they were dealing with. High Counselor Vasquez's mental voice brought the discussion to a close. "The Council authorizes the reconnaissance mission. Camiton Amelia, you will lead the team. You have full authority to select your personnel and equipment. Time is of the essence." As the chamber began to dissolve around them, Admiral Nakamura approached Amelia. "I've got some people in mind for your team. Specialists in impossible situations." "I'm listening." "First, you'll want Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Xenoarchaeology Division. If these beings are as primitive as their energy signatures suggest, she'll be able to interpret their culture and intentions." "Good choice." "Second, Sergeant Major Torres from the Dimensional Marines. He's the best at operating in hostile environments where the laws of physics might not apply." "I know Torres. He's solid." "And finally, Dr. Kepler from the Quantum Engineering Corps. If their technology is as alien as you suggest, he might be able to figure out how it works." Amelia nodded, already beginning to plan the mission in her mind. "How soon can they be ready?" "Tanaka and Kepler can be at Prometheus Station within 12 hours. Torres is currently on Titan, but he can be there in 18. Make it happen. An admiral? Yes? Prepare the fleet for the possibility that this reconnaissance mission might not end well. Admiral Nakamura's expression grew grim. Already on it. But Amelia, be careful. If your analysis is correct, we're dealing with something that operates on principles we don't understand. That makes them incredibly dangerous. As the chamber finally dissolved and Amelia found herself back in the quantum transport stream, she reflected on the Admiral's words. In her 20-year career, she had faced threats that had seemed impossible to overcome. But this felt different. This felt like something that could fundamentally change the balance of power in the solar system. The question was whether humanity was ready for that change. Prometheus Station hummed with activity as Amelia's team assembled in the main briefing room. The chamber had been reconfigured to provide maximum security. Quantum scramblers prevented any form of surveillance, and the walls themselves existed in a state of temporal flux that made them impossible to breach. Dr. Yuki Tanaka arrived first, her slight frame belying the formidable intellect that had made her the foremost expert on alien civilizations. Her specialty was xenoarchaeology, the study of extinct alien cultures, but her knowledge extended to anthropology, linguistics, and what she called cognitive xenobiology, the study of how alien minds might think differently from human ones. Kamaton, she said, bowing slightly in the traditional Japanese manner. I've reviewed the preliminary data. This is unlike anything in our archives. That's what we're here to figure out. Amelia replied, appreciating Tanaka's directness. Sergeant Major Carlos Torres materialized next, his massive frame filling the room's transport alcove. Torres was a legend among the Dimensional Marines, the elite force that operated in the spaces between realities where normal physics didn't apply. His augmentations were more extensive than Amelia's, designed for combat in environments where matter and energy might behave in completely unpredictable ways. Ma'am, he said, his voice carrying the gravelly tone of someone who had breathed too much alien atmosphere. I've been briefed on the mission parameters. When do we leave? As soon as Dr. Kepler arrives, Amelia answered. As if summoned by her words, the final member of their team appeared in the transport alcove. Dr. Heinrich Kepler looked more like a professor than a soldier, but his expertise in quantum engineering had saved humanity from extinction more than once. His most famous achievement was the development of the reality anchors that prevented interdimensional invasions during the quantum wars. Apologies for the delay, he said, his German accent still noticeable despite centuries of linguistic evolution. I was analyzing the energy patterns you transmitted. Most fascinating. What did you find? Amelia asked, gesturing for the team to take seats around the briefing table. Kepler activated a holographic display that showed the mysterious energy signatures. The patterns are unlike anything in our databases, but they follow certain underlying principles. Whoever is building these structures has an intuitive understanding of forces that we can barely manipulate with our most advanced technology. Intuitive? Tanaka asked. Think of it this way, Kepler explained. We build quantum computers by carefully arranging atoms and controlling electromagnetic fields. These beings seem to manipulate quantum forces the way we might shape clay with our hands. Torres leaned forward, his enhanced eyes studying the display. That makes them incredibly dangerous. If they don't need technology to access these forces. Exactly, Kepler confirmed. They might be able to counter our advantages simply by existing. Amelia activated the room's main display, showing the current state of the lunar construction. The structures had grown noticeably even in the past few hours. Our mission is straightforward, she began. We need to get close enough to determine what they're building, who they are, and what they're planning. Secondary objectives include assessing their defenses and capabilities. What about first contact protocols? Tanaka asked. You'll handle that if the opportunity arises. But our primary goal is intelligence gathering. Torres studied the tactical display. How are we getting there? Standard transport won't work if they can detect across multiple dimensions. Dr. Kepler has a solution, Amelia said. Kepler nodded, bringing up a schematic of what looked like a small spacecraft. "I've modified a reconnaissance probe with a new form of stealth technology. Instead of trying to hide across all dimensions, it phases in and out of reality at quantum intervals. Effectively, it exists for only microseconds at a time." "That sounds uncomfortable," Torres observed. "It is," Kepler admitted. "But it should make us effectively invisible to their sensors." Tanaka studied the ship's specifications. "How close can we get?" "The ship can land on the lunar surface approximately 5 kilometers from the main construction site. From there, we proceed on foot." "On foot?" Torres raised an eyebrow. "On the moon?" "The construction site is generating its own atmosphere," Amelia explained. "Another mystery we need to solve." The team spent the next 3 hours going over mission details, equipment specifications, and contingency plans. Each member brought their own expertise to bear on the problems they might face. Tanaka focused on communication protocols, developing a system that could attempt contact across multiple sensory and dimensional channels. If the beings were as primitive as their energy signatures suggested, they might communicate through methods humans had never considered. Torres reviewed the tactical situation, identifying potential threats and escape routes. His analysis was sobering. If the beings were hostile and as powerful as the data suggested, the team's chances of survival were minimal. Kepler worked on equipment modifications, adapting their gear to function in an environment where the laws of physics might be negotiable. His solutions were elegant but complex, requiring each team member to master new technologies in a matter of hours. As the briefing wound down, Amelia found herself studying her team members. Each was a specialist in their field, among the best humanity had to offer. But they were facing the unknown, and that was always dangerous. "Questions?" she asked. "Just one," Torres said. "What happens if we don't come back?" It was a fair question. The mission was dangerous, and the stakes were enormous. "Then humanity prepares for war," Amelia answered simply. "But I don't intend for it to come to that." "What about backup?" Tanaka asked. "If something goes wrong." "Admiral Nakamura has a fleet on standby," Amelia replied. "But realistically, if we get in trouble on the lunar surface, we're on our own." The team absorbed this information silently. They were all veterans of dangerous missions, but this felt different. They were walking into a situation where their entire technological civilization might be at a disadvantage. "When do we leave?" Kepler asked. 6 hours, Amelia said. "That gives us time for final preparations and equipment checks." As the team dispersed to their preparations, Amelia remained in the briefing room, staring at the holographic display of the moon. The structures continued to pulse with their alien energy, and she could see new construction beginning even as she watched. Her neural implants chimed with an incoming message from Marcus Chin. The message was brief but disturbing. The energy readings from the lunar surface had increased by another 20% in the past hour. Whatever the beings were building, they were accelerating their timeline. Amelia closed her eyes and accessed her meditation protocols, allowing her enhanced mind to process the vast amount of information they had gathered. Patterns began to emerge, not clear pictures, but suggestions of something larger. The construction sites weren't random. They followed ley lines of gravitational force that most humans couldn't even detect. The energy patterns weren't chaotic. They were building towards something specific. And the timing wasn't coincidental. They had begun construction just as humanity's technology reached its current peak. It was as if they had been waiting for something. Or someone. Amelia opened her eyes and began final preparations for the mission. In 6 hours, they would have some answers. She just hoped they would live long enough to share them. The modified reconnaissance ship Whisper existed in a state of quantum uncertainty, its hull flickering between dimensions as it approached the lunar surface. Inside the cramped cockpit, Amelia's team prepared for what might be humanity's first contact with an entirely new form of life. "Approaching the insertion point," Kepler announced from the pilot's seat. His hands danced over controls that responded to thought as much as touch, managing the delicate balance between existing and not existing that kept them hidden from detection. Through the viewport, the moon's surface looked different than it had in the historical records. The familiar gray regolith was still there, but vast sections now pulsed with a strange bioluminescence. The alien structures rose from the surface like organic growths, their surfaces rippling with patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Atmosphere readings are confirmed, Torres reported from the environmental station. They've somehow created a breathable atmosphere across nearly a quarter of the lunar surface. How is that possible? Tanaka asked, her scientific mind struggling with the implications. Unknown, Kepler replied. The energy signatures suggest they're manipulating gravity and molecular structure on a massive scale, but the methods are completely beyond our understanding. Amelia studied the tactical display, marking potential landing sites and approach routes. The alien structures were arranged in patterns that seemed both organic and purposeful, like a massive organism that had been designed by an intelligence that thought in completely different terms than humans. There, she said, pointing to a relatively clear area about 4 kilometers from the main construction site. Set us down in that crater. The landing was unlike anything they had experienced. Instead of the normal sensation of touching solid ground, the ship seemed to sink into the lunar surface as if it were landing on water. The sensation was deeply unsettling. Atmospheric readings are stable, Torres reported. Temperature is holding at a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius. Pressure is equivalent to Earth at sea level. That's impossible, Kepler muttered. The moon doesn't have enough gravity to hold that kind of atmosphere. Apparently it does now, Amelia observed. Equipment check. Each team member activated their gear and ran diagnostics. Their equipment had been specially modified for this mission. Communication devices that could operate across multiple dimensions, sensors that could detect energy patterns beyond the normal spectrum, and weapons that could function even if local physics had been altered. All systems green, Torres reported. Linguistic analysis equipment operational, Tanaka confirmed. Quantum measurement devices functional, Kepler added. Amelia sealed her helmet and activated her suit's environmental systems. Remember, we're here to observe and learn. Avoid contact unless absolutely necessary. If something goes wrong, retreat to the ship immediately. The airlock cycled, and they stepped onto the lunar surface. The sensation was extraordinary. Despite being on the moon, they could feel a slight breeze, and the ground beneath their feet had a springy quality that was nothing like the hard regolith they had expected. The air tasted of something they couldn't identify, not unpleasant, but definitely alien. My God! Tanaka whispered, her voice carried by the suit's communication system. Look at that! She was pointing toward the horizon, where the alien structures rose like mountains. Up close, they were even more impressive, massive constructions that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. They were clearly artificial, but they moved with an organic rhythm that suggested they might actually be alive. Energy readings are off the charts, Kepler reported, his instruments scanning the structures. They're generating power levels that should be impossible with any known technology. Not technology, Torres corrected, his enhanced eyes studying the construction through multiple spectrums. Look at the patterns. This isn't built, it's grown. He was right. As they moved closer, the organic nature of the structures became more apparent. They weren't constructed of separate components. They were single, massive organisms that had been shaped into purposeful forms. Biological architecture, Tanaka breathed. They're not building machines, they're cultivating living structures. The team moved forward cautiously, their sensors recording everything. The landscape around them was unlike anything they had seen before. The lunar surface had been transformed into something that resembled a vast garden, but the plants were made of crystalline structures that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Movement, Torres reported, his weapon systems automatically coming online. 2 o'clock, approximately 1 kilometer. Through their enhanced vision, they could see shapes moving among the crystal formations. They were humanoid but larger than humans, with a shambling gait that suggested great strength. Their skin appeared to be a mottled green-brown, and they carried what looked like primitive weapons, axes and spears that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the plants. Orcs? Tanaka whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. What? Amelia asked. They're orcs. From ancient human mythology. Look at the body structure, the weapons, the way they move. They match the descriptions perfectly. Amelia studied the creatures through her enhanced vision. Tanaka was right. They did match the ancient descriptions of orcs from human mythology. But that raised more questions than it answered. How is that possible? Kepler asked. Unknown, Tanaka replied. But the implications are staggering. Either these beings evolved to match human mythological descriptions, or they're the source of the mythology. Amelia finished. The team continued their approach, staying low and using the crystal formations for cover. The orcs seemed to be engaged in some form of construction work, though their methods were unlike anything humans had developed. They weren't using tools in the traditional sense. Instead, they seemed to be shaping the crystalline structures with their bare hands, causing them to grow and change through direct contact. They're manipulating matter at the molecular level, Kepler observed, his instruments detecting the energy patterns. But they're not using any technology we can identify. Innate ability, Torres concluded. They can alter matter through some form of biological process. As they watched, one of the orcs raised its hands toward a partially formed structure. Energy flowed from its fingers, and the crystalline material began to grow and reshape itself. Within minutes, what had been a rough framework became a sophisticated architectural element. Incredible, Tanaka murmured. They're not just building, they're literally willing these structures into existence. That explains the energy signatures, Kepler said. They're not using external power sources, they're generating the energy themselves. Amelia motioned for the team to continue moving. They needed to get closer to the main construction site to understand what the orcs were building. As they crept forward, the alien landscape continued to amaze them. The crystal formations weren't random. They formed patterns that seemed to channel and focus energy. The entire area was like a massive circuit board, with the orcs as living components in a system of incredible complexity. It's beautiful, Tanaka said, her scientific objectivity momentarily overcome by wonder. It's also terrifying, Torres added. If they can reshape matter at will, what else can they do? We're about to find out, Amelia said, pointing toward the main construction site. Ahead of them, the largest of the alien structures rose into the artificial sky. It was enormous, easily the size of a human city, but it pulsed with a rhythm that made it seem like a living heart. Around its base, hundreds of orcs moved in patterns that seemed both chaotic and purposeful. What are they building? Kepler asked. Something that's going to change everything, Amelia replied grimly. As they approached the massive structure, the true scope of the orcs' achievement became clear. This wasn't just a building, it was a machine of incredible complexity, grown rather than built, that seemed to be designed for a single purpose. Energy readings are spiking, Kepler reported. Whatever that thing is, it's getting ready to activate. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the lunar environment. They had come here to gather intelligence, but what they were seeing suggested that they might already be too late. The orcs weren't just building bases on the moon. They were preparing for war. The massive structure loomed before them like an organic mountain, its surface rippling with patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with something vast and alien. Amelia's team crouched behind a formation of crystal trees, their sensors working overtime to analyze what they were seeing. It's not just a building, Kepler whispered, his instruments detecting energy patterns that defied explanation. It's some kind of organism. A living machine. Through her enhanced vision, Amelia could see the structure's surface more clearly. What had appeared to be architectural elements from a distance were actually biological components, tissues, organs, systems that work together in ways that human science had never imagined. The energy patterns are incredible, he continued. It's like looking at the heart of a star, but contained within biological systems. Torres had his weapon systems active, though he kept them concealed. Movement patterns suggest approximately 2,000 orcs in the immediate area. They're working in coordinated groups, but I can't determine their command structure. They might not have one, Tanaka observed. Look at how they move, it's more like a hive mind than individual coordination. She was right. The orcs moved with a fluid synchronization that suggested shared consciousness. When one group began working on a section of the structure, others would automatically move to support them without any visible communication. Biological radio? Amelia asked. Possibly, Tanaka replied. Or something more fundamental. They might be connected at a quantum level. The team continued their observation, documenting everything they could. The orcs' construction methods were unlike anything in human experience. They would place their hands on the structure and channel energy directly into it, causing it to grow and change. The process was organic but purposeful, as if they were nurturing a living thing rather than building a machine. Look at the base of the structure, Kepler said, pointing to where the organism met the lunar surface. It's connected to the ley lines I detected earlier. It's drawing energy from the moon itself. That's impossible, Torres objected. The moon is geologically dead. Not anymore, Amelia observed. They've somehow awakened it. As they watched, the structure pulsed with increasing intensity. The bioluminescent patterns on its surface began to move more rapidly, and the orcs around it became more agitated in their movements. It's reaching some kind of critical phase, Kepler reported. Energy levels are approaching what should be impossible levels for biological systems. What do you think it does? Tanaka asked. Based on the energy patterns and the structural configuration, Kepler said, running rapid calculations through his enhanced mind. I believe it's some form of dimensional gateway. A gateway to where? Unknown. But the energy signature suggests it could open a portal to virtually anywhere in the galaxy. Amelia felt a chill of understanding. The orcs weren't just building a base on the moon. They were preparing to bring something through from wherever they had come from. We need to get closer, she decided. We need to understand what they're planning. That's incredibly dangerous, Torres warned. If they detect us, then we retreat. But we need more information. The team moved forward carefully, using the crystal formations for cover. The closer they got to the main structure, the more alien the environment became. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy, and strange sounds echoed from the structure, not mechanical noises, but something that resembled organic breathing or heartbeats. Atmospheric composition is changing, Torres reported. Oxygen levels are dropping, but there are new compounds I can't identify. The structure is breathing, Tanaka realized. It's actually respirating. That's not possible, Kepler protested. Nothing that size could maintain biological function. Tell that to the readings, Torres said grimly. As they approached the base of the structure, they could see the orcs working more closely. Each was nearly 3 meters tall, with massive muscular frames and skin that seemed to be partially crystalline. Their eyes glowed with the same bioluminescent light as the structure, and their movements were coordinated with a precision that suggested they were all part of a single organism. They're not just connected mentally, Tanaka observed. They're actually part of the structure itself. She was right. The orcs' crystalline skin patches were connected to the structure by thin filaments of energy. They weren't just building it, they were integrating with it. Biological technology, Kepler breathed. They've achieved what we've only theorized about, complete integration between organism and machine. The implications were staggering. If the orcs could integrate with their technology, they might be capable of feats that purely mechanical technology couldn't achieve. Movement, Torres warned. Group of orcs approaching our position. Amelia looked where he was pointing and saw a group of 6 orcs moving in their direction. They weren't walking randomly. They were moving with purpose, as if they knew exactly where the human team was hidden. They've detected us, she realized. Impossible, Kepler said. The stealth systems are still active. Then they're not detecting us technologically, Tanaka said. They're sensing us biologically. The orcs continued their approach, and now the team could see that their eyes were definitely fixed on their hiding spot. There was no doubt they had been discovered. Options? Amelia asked. We could retreat to the ship, Torres suggested. Or we could try to make contact, Tanaka added. Or we could find out what they're really capable of, Amelia decided. She stood up from behind the crystal formation, her hands visible and empty. The approaching orcs stopped, their glowing eyes studying her with an intelligence that was clearly not primitive. I am Captain Amelia of the Terran Federation, she said, speaking slowly and clearly. We come in peace. The orcs exchanged glances, and one of them stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice was deep and resonant, but the words were in a language that was hauntingly familiar. We know who you are, daughter of the Star Touch, it said in accented but understandable English. We have been waiting for you. The revelation hit the team like a physical blow. The orcs not only understood human language, they had been expecting them. You've been waiting for us? Amelia asked, her mind racing through the implications. Your kind has grown strong, the orc continued. Strong enough to serve our purpose. What purpose? The orc gestured toward the massive structure. The Great Awakening. The return of the Old Ones. Your species has prepared the way, though you did not know it. Tanaka stepped forward, her xenoarchaeological training taking over. Who are the Old Ones? Those who came before. Those who will come again. You'll misremember us, though dimly. We are the shadow behind your stories, the truth behind your legends. You're saying you're the source of human mythology? Amelia asked. We are the source of all mythology, the orc replied. Every world, every species. We plant the seeds of memory, and when the time is right, we return to harvest what has grown. The implications were staggering. If the orc was telling the truth, then humanity's entire development might have been guided by these beings. What do you want from us? Amelia asked. Your world. Your technology. Your people. The orc's eyes blazed brighter. You have achieved what we required, the ability to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. Now we will use that knowledge to bring our masters home. And if we refuse? Then your species will be absorbed into the great work, as all species eventually are. Amelia felt the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just first contact. This was the beginning of the end of human independence. How long do we have? She asked. The gateway will be complete in 10 of your days, the orc replied. After that, nothing will be the same. Can we stop it? The orc's expression might have been a smile. You can try. But you should know, we have been preparing for this moment for millennia. Your species is not the first to achieve quantum manipulation. The others also tried to stop us. What happened to them? They became part of the great work. As you will. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden pulse of energy from the massive structure. The bioluminescent patterns on its surface blazed brighter, and the orcs around it began moving with increased urgency. It begins, the orc said. The final phase. Amelia looked at her team. They had the information they came for, but it was worse than they had imagined. The orcs weren't just building a base. They were preparing to bring something through that would end human civilization as they knew it. We need to leave, she decided. Now. You may go, the orc said. Tell your leaders what you have learned. Let them prepare as they will. It will make no difference. As the team retreated toward their ship, Amelia's mind was already working on the problem. They had 10 days to find a way to stop something that had been planned for millennia. The odds were impossible. But humanity had faced impossible odds before.